Bienvenue, my boneyard marauders, because we are back with a long-lost video from the Battle Hardened Milwaukee that happened to kick off this ProQuest season. Now, of course, I was there streaming, I was watching every game that occurred, and some of these backup games did not make it to the mainstream itself. And there was a Levia game that I was really hoping we'd get to see, but because of timing, we just never did. So this is a round 3 backup match, Enigma versus Levia. Now, I had said in the League of Levia, I was going to post this one on Patreon with some of the other VOD reviews that I do, but because this was a public event with MinMax and all that, and I do think that if you're on feature, you deserve to be able to watch your game back, right? Like it's a really exciting moment for a lot of people. So for the Enigma player's sake, for the Levia's player's sake, this one's as public as can be, people. So let's jump into a little bit of a VOD review as we let the game play out. Basically, David Bruner 2-0 going first on Enigma versus Brennan Tolney 2-0 going second on Levia. And this matchup from the Levia side is actually a little precarious because you definitely go into it feeling like you're favored, but that's an overall sense of the matchup. The actual turn-by-turn ways that the game will play out can be much more impactful than your overarching game plan of just feeling like generally you will keep up these high damage turns. You will always force the Enigma to choose hand or board, hand or board. That's in theory what's happening turn by turn, with the Levia being able to just drop blood rushes, have these 2 wides, hit with Shadow Realm Horror, blah, blah, blah. That's the ideal, and that's what even the Enigma thinks is happening in this matchup. But the reality is some Levia turns are just 6. Some Levia turns maybe fall flat in a bit of like an IP situation because a go again is missed, or a wild ride doesn't hit the discard, things like that. Or Enigma is able to play really strong defense with like a hold the line and arsenal right into the blood rush play and defend more of the board state than was expected. There's a lot of things that can happen that make this matchup not just be numbers beats numbers, but rather some unlucky outcomes from the Levia or some good setup from the Enigma kind of counters the way that the matchup would otherwise play out. So like I said, we're a little bit late to watch the game play out here, but I do want to note what's happened so far is that Brennan has built up a bit of a graveyard, leading into this like first big push that he's likely to get off. But with the disruption coming out of David with Weakest Link, it's already pressuring Brennan's aggressive hand with Wild Ride that we got a little bit of a peek of. Of course, even when you run this aggressive suite of Scab Skins and Savage Sash, you have enough armor to make this kind of block once. It's actually one of the reasons I still like Husk in this matchup, because you get an opportunity to just say no blocks on a disruptive piece like CNC or Weakest Link, which Enigmas definitely will run. Savage Sash, though, has the upside of hopefully allowing you to play out this pretty impressive, aggressively slanted turn. It's just at the trade-off of somewhere in the game, you're going to have to block with a card from hand on a disruptive piece. So we've already seen that trade-off happen, and we'll keep a close eye on how that actually ends up impacting the game here. So what we see from Brennan is actually a really, really smart way to pitch, because he had the opportunity with that, with the Graveling Growl that was in his graveyard. If he only pitches a blue on this Shadow Realm Horror, then he would not have another pitch outlet to play into the Graveling Growl if he did not hit the swing big. So by overpitching the Wild Ride first, he makes sure that he can cycle that card to hopefully find more power cards. I mean, honestly, Wild Ride's a pretty good power card, but a Blood Rush is a little bit better, right? So overpitching that just to make sure it's out of hand, regardless of hitting the swing big from the Shadow Realm or not. Very heads up play. And then there was always going to be a playable card from that Shadow Realm as well, because Graveling and Swing Big were one of the 4 that were in the graveyard. One of them is always at least going to get banished. And then boom, you've got a, just a way to proactively even refill that graveyard back to 3. So really solid turn out of Brennan, landing the first bit of damage onto the board with that Shadow Realm connecting in full. The Swing Big was covered by an unmovable, and right now Enigma's you definitely put them on playing that card. It was kind of back and forth for a lot of Enigma lists, but right now, especially with Earth, covering up 8 is just always live. So Unmovable makes a lot of sense in their lists right now. And we see another disruptive play now with Weakest Link. Brennan, now with his armor pieces, doesn't even have the choice to only give 1 card from hand anymore, because sacking the Savage Sash for 1 block, the Scab Skins for 1 block, that's only 2. So now it's give 2 cards or let the Weakest Link through. And if you let the Weakest Link through, there's a world where you don't really let David get full value out of that, because he's already got a card, assumedly for Arsenal. But it is possible that because this has Go again, he could drop something like a Haze Bending in play, and then with a card effectively drawn from Weakest Link, get a new Arsenal. It could be like another Restless Coalescence. There are ways where he would be able to abuse. Oh, okay, actually, look at that. That's something we definitely didn't expect. Tunic counter for now a Smash Up. And we don't have the card pop up, at least not how I'm viewing it now. I can probably add that in post. But Smash Up is really funny because the rate on it is quite strong, right? It's a 1 for 5, but it's got an additional hit effect, and it's looking for non-attacks, or rather attacks in Arsenal. So when Brennan flips it face up there was a world where he gets absolutely punished by that. Already gave cards on the block to the Weakest Link, and then if that was like an Endless Maw, right, like this kind of 2-card play pattern where blocking 2 on Weakest Link, and then pitching 1 into the Endless Maw, and then resetting your Arsenal, that could have been something that he was going for and would have gotten absolutely blown out by that kind of position. So lucky that it is the Blood Rush, and lucky for multiple reasons. First of all, even seeing a Blood Rush in this matchup is quite exciting, because, I mean, you definitely need it to crack the board state. There is not a board state yet to speak of, but now it's sitting there waiting for David to miss a disruptive turn and immediately answer a board state turn. And this is a matchup where generally Enigma, when they go for the board state turn, if you've got a Blood Rush waiting in Arsenal, or if you draw up on a Blood Rush and have an attack in Arsenal, you can very easily get a 5-card Blood Rush off. The only way that gets disrupted is if they do, of course, like add a disruptive piece to their board state turn, but generally that's not all happening at once. You know, it's going to be a Miragai, or it's going to be like some crazy 10,000 year reunion play with astral etchings, yada yada. When they go for these big board state plays, there's normally not another attack attached to it. But David's list is actually playing things a bit differently. We see a Miragai now pitched for another Smash Up, but this is a Smash Up that is just a 2-card 5, because we know that Blood Rush is already in Arsenal. So this is where Brennan absolutely gets to say, okay, no blocks, let's send a 5-card Blood Rush now. Obviously, with the way the life is, it's not going to threaten lethal unless some crazy things happen, and honestly, crazy things are harder these days without Art of War. But definitely looking to land true damage then, not really using this Blood Rush to clear the board, but instead pressure life, so that the windows for David to build the board are that much more condensed. Because it's kind of like playing against any deck that's looking to keep cards, like a Bolton Sabres deck is a similar position where if you just push them low enough, then you're kind of always winning, because any hand you throw after the fact is going to take cards out of it, and for them to pull off their combo, they need to keep basically a full hand. Enigma to build a scary board is kind of similar. They can do it off smaller hands, basically off the back of Traverse. Traverse pulling the chi to make Miragai a thing is definitely strong, but they also want to do other things on that turn, perhaps pay into the arms piece, perhaps arsenal a defense reaction just to then protect the board that much more. So in a way, if you get David low now, you're just taking away options for those cards in hand to build momentum off the back of what would be the board state turn. So David so far, happy to say no blocks, taking 10 damage now. And it's kind of funny, you can hear the players complain a little bit in the background about the life app. The free internet at the venue was very slow, so there was some input lag on the phone, but I'll have you know, our trusty dev fixed that problem even with internet issues, so there should be no problems going forward with input lag, which is sick. Shout out to Alan, a fellow Levia player, for the fix. Anyway, this now becomes quite a strong play, and it's one of the reasons I really like send packing, right? Because this kind of looked like a no blocks out of David because he wanted to play his cards, not necessarily because he was waiting for best value on block. If you're looking for best value on block, you can do a similar play where you just wait until the last attack anyway, right? But this is now a little bit of an inefficient block. David's now blocked 9 with his cards. 9. Just to get the homage back. And now this is going to be a 2-card hand with homage. The only way this is really looking good is if there's a double transcend type of play here, or a 1-card play into arsenaling the homage again. But I think David's really looking for a transcend because he wants the headpiece online as soon as possible. So no, the homage is just coming back, or stir the pot rather, is just coming back to be a blue pitch on this turn to effectively build a hammer in this waxing specter. So I'd say pretty good turn cycle for Brennan there. He's built up a board state with agility now. He's got another 4 cards. The board he has to clear is really not all that threatening, and his graveyard state is also very healthy. There should only be that 1 miss right now in that blood rush. So drawing up any type of banishers, conditional banishers, just can't miss in this state, which is just great to know that your momentum will keep going turn after turn. So let's take another look here. Yeah, for sure. Look at that graveyard. This is a horror turn if I've ever seen one. At least that's the kind of graveyard you're looking for, right? Odds are great that you actually hit. Oh, of course, look at that horror. So he was always going to have go again off that horror. So the agility, a little bit redundant here. But does it hit the 3 or not? Because there is that 1 blood rush. Oh boy, this is looking good. Yes, look at that. Hitting swing big again. This is some incredible value because at minimum, this gets to be a swing big follow-up into Arsenal. The Dread Screamer, I believe, is in hand. He could also take it a couple different ways. I guess there's the Graveling Growl that was also banished, and he's got the Beast Within. So he could go Dread into then the Graveling.
Graveling is I can play it if I banish to 6.
Okay, yep, so Brennan just confirming it is the Graveling that is banished there. So you've got multiple options with this, actually. I wonder what he goes for. From my experience with this matchup, I just wouldn't want to be off of a go again in Arsenal. It is a lot of damage now. You are, in theory, like, presenting close to lethal if you just go for the 3 wide. But your game plan could fall apart if you play without a extender in Arsenal, because you'll run into one of those turns where Levia like just throws 6 or something like that. I guess what Brennan is insulated from, if that would be the draw, is he could at least try to force with Scabskins and Gamblers to always go 2 wide. So, you know what? I actually like this out of Brennan, simply because he's taken an equipment suite that is rewarding going for these kinds of play lines. But that's a legitimate difference in decision-making based on your equipment pieces, because not everyone is running Scabs Gamblers right now. For example, Hooves is making its way into a lot of Levia lists, or even Scabskins without Gambler's Gloves is another way that people have played it. So depending on how your equipment suite looks can change how you make these decisions. So I think I like what Brendan has ended up with here. This is just the cleanest play pitch-wise as well. And it's going to... Yep, there we go. Look at that. David's saying no blocks, taking another 6. It's going to put David all the way in single digits now, as well as clearing that board. And David is still looking to transcend at least once this game to turn on the headpiece. So now it happens off the hold the line as a defensive blue played. So David is really in that state of having one more shot here, one more shot most likely, to now use his headpiece and have a comeback turn with a manifestations. Unless, okay, look at that. He just had one in hand anyway. So off the transcending there on defense, he gets to now play out the Miragai. But this is the kind of position where it doesn't feel that bad, right? Because the worst case for David playing out this kind of Miragai turn would be he also gets to arsenal a card. And if he got to arsenal something and it was a defense reaction, then that would really be worst case for this kind of position from Brennan, because Brennan is off Arsenal. He has a 4-card hand, and he has a 4-card hand that really wants to crack that Manifestations. It would be basically impossible if there was a defense reaction in Arsenal for that to be possible. Since that's not the case, this 4-card hand has a good shot, actually, of either taking the full hand and leaving the Manifestations up. The Manifestations wouldn't be able to swing because there's no tunic counter. That's actually like a fine way for it to happen. If you can get that off of 3 cards, that's also quite ideal. If you can get it off of like a Dread into Graveling type play for a 3-card 12, take all of his cards, leave the Maragai up, but now get ahead by arseling a card, that would also feel great. But Brennan's going for a blocking position here, blocking with a Clash of Agility. Okay, let's see the Clash. He does win it. Gets an agility token, but it's now a 3-card play. It's a 3-card play. This is a really tricky position to be in, because when you're answering a Maragai, you don't really want to be on less cards, unless, I guess with an agility up, this hand could still convert to like a 12 damage 3-card play. The only issue then again would be you are off of Arsenal to answer the Maragai on the follow-up turn. Don't quite see what's in the hand there. I think it's a Wild Ride, Mark the Beast, and don't quite see the other card. But there's a chance then with Savage Sash that this can still be the 12 damage that we were looking for. So let's take a look. Agility pops.
So I have go again.
He's got go again. He's checking his banish. It's 5 cards. Oh, sorry, 3 blood deck cards banished. So, oh, because it's a Doomsday as that last card. So the Doomsday is not going to be a part of this turn cycle. Kind of sad, right? This is where you'd look at that 4-card hand and basically want the Doomsday to be that 4th card you arsenal into this next turn. But there's some other factors in play that really aren't letting that happen because of the Wild Ride and the double non-6 blues that were a thing. That kind of punishes making that decision because you can't just launch the Wild Ride because the agility wouldn't have been there to kind of ensure it. So he's going for a different line here with Spoiled Skull. And actually, this is a nice time to layer it because Spoiled Skull picking even the high attack value card like Swing Big that would otherwise be the end-all be-all of the turn, no go again, has the agility next to it. So finding a really, really smart use case here of the Spoiled Skull to push that Swings Big's ceiling just a little bit higher to now make sure that it's a part of a turn with a higher damage ceiling outcome. So choosing Blood Rush, Swing Big, Endless Maw as his 3 options, this generally is at least going to be attack into Claw, is what it's looking like, no matter what happens, because there's a yellow and a blue that are still, or a yellow and a red that are still in his hand. So even the Endless Maw would convert into 12 damage. So that's what the floor was of that Spoiled Skull play. Of course, the ceiling is now happening in front of our eyes with the Blood Rush Bellow. Discarding the Mark of the Beast. This is good. This turns on Graveling Growls. This turns off Blood Debt. And he drew another Blood Rush. This game is popping off. You just go for it. So, okay, he's saying it out loud, but actually you got to be a bit more critical of how the hand lines up. So he had no resource cards to really pair with that Blood Rush. So it's a pretty, it's a pretty safe line to just go for the Blood Rush, no matter what. Because the hand was, what, like a red and a yellow? A red and the yellow when he played the Blood Rush Bellow. So his turn with just that singular Blood Rush would have just been a Claw into attack. If you play the second Blood Rush, your turn is probably still just going to be Claw into attack. It's not like you were giving up a 3-wide Blood Rush to then just play a 2-wide double Blood Rush. That's where a lot of people make the mistake on playing out that kind of turn. But Brennan didn't have double Claw Blood Rush as a line anyway. I guess maybe it was possible if you look at what Savage Sash was doing for the turn. Right, because the hand was Mark of the Beast plus the Wild Ride. And he did have Savage Sash up and 2 floating. So no, that wouldn't have done it. That wouldn't have done it because 2 floating would pay into Claw. The Mark the Beast would pay into Claw. and then you wouldn't be able to play that Wild Ride. Plus Blood Debt would still be on. So yeah, like just, he says he doesn't like doing it, but actually it's absolutely correct to play that Blood Rush there. So, yeah, don't always get in your head about it, of these plays that always feel bad. Sometimes they are correct. Like, and that absolutely was correct. So now we see the play following up here. It is Dread Screamer and Endless Maw in hand. This is now going to allow basically the exact play we were talking about, which is just claw into attack. The unfortunate part here is it does cost that chess piece, and the chess piece was used in a scenario that is pretty low value, you know, just discounting one resource, but you got to look at it. It enabled an attack at all. That's pretty good. It enabled an attack at all. So Brennan once again claiming unlucky, but actually this is still fine. Like, this is not bad luck. This is kind of what the turn was going to be no matter what, and you just got an extra 4 damage out of it. So I think it's pretty okay here. But it's okay. A lot of us Levia players like to he and haw about how we could have had better variants, and sure, I won't disagree that you know, that Dread Screamer could have been a blue, sure, and then you would have a better turn, yes, but it wasn't, and you still got a pretty good line out of it here. Now, this is still damage that is being completely covered, which is, I mean, kind of expected, I guess, just seeing that the hand just went too wide. But it's going to take all the equipment. It's taking Traverse, and it's taking Traverse on a line that is pretty low value. It's purely a defensive play, pitching into the Spectral Shield, which is then going to trigger Meridian Pathway. So the entire defensive suite out of Enigma is gone here. Completely gone. Brennan once again claiming he is dead. I don't think that's the case at all. He'd be dead if he was forced to block this Miragai, but he's not forced to block this Miragai. He doesn't actually have to block this Miragai for, well, I guess he'd have to block the next attack if it lived. So he's dead if he doesn't kill it on the follow-up here. That's where it would start to feel really bad. But for this attack, he doesn't even have to fear the gloves. He can just say no blocks, and then return this 4-card hand. Once again, David is out of equipment pieces. Well, not all of them. He's got the arms piece to give an additional ward 1. So Brennan just has to threaten 14 damage. He needs to threaten 14 damage, and he will basically win this game. So rather than saying the game is over, you just have to look at your hand and see if that's possible or not. And sometimes the Enigmas don't even get to block that kind of damage anyway, because they've got non-blocks in the deck, they've got 2 blocks in the deck. So 14 is what you absolutely need to make sure that this turn happens. But you know, even 13 is probably fine, because once again, that would in theory take all the cards in hand plus the equipment, and then the Miragai would not be able to swing. And this is not even based on David drawing these non-3 blocks. So at this point, there are quite a few misses in the graveyard. It should be Blood Rush, and Savage Sash, right?
Yeah. It's a hit? Yeah. It's a hit. No way.
But Brennan getting quite lucky here. So what were all those complaints about, Brennan? What were those complaints about? I think he said unlucky like 4 times. Well, look at this. Shadow Realm Horror now hit not only all 3, it hit more extenders. It hit a freaking Dread Screamer. So talk about the floor of what this turn needed to do. Well, it's doing a lot more, isn't it? Depending on the graveyard state specifically, I think it was only those 2 misses. I'm pretty sure 1 Blood Rush got banished, so it's like 1 Blood Rush, 1 Sash. Depending on that exactly, this probably was a must-roll Scab Skins to make sure the game is playable. Oh, there's that Clash of Agility blue as well. Okay, yeah, so there were 3. All right, so I think the math was better to roll Scabs, I'm pretty sure, but that's okay. Brennan is definitely not unlucky, that's for sure. So now coming in for 7, this in theory takes 2 cards plus the arms piece, and then we know for a fact Dread Screamer comes in, and then at minimum a Claw. Gives up the Miragai early. I think this is David accepting that this turn is going to go wide enough to clear it anyway. Brennan once again getting lucky. I don't know how you can complain, man. There was so much more game left to play. So hitting scab skins there. And actually, this is an update for those who have been on coverage before. The initial rules said to not roll the stream dice. That has been updated. These stream dice you can roll. They have no air bubbles. It was the previous ones that did. So that is a legal roll. I don't want to see people in the chat crying about, rigged dice, because I've heard enough of that, honestly. I'm tired of it. So here we go. Goes for the Graveling Growl line. I didn't really pay attention to what Brennan had in hand here, but it actually could just present lethal at this point.
That's showbiz, man.
I mean, like, at minimum, right? It presents lethal. It's dependent on, like, how David will block it. I don't think he's dead this turn.
Going to 3.
Endless Maw.
Maybe we'll hit all 3.
Okay, this is great.
Yeah, I'll pick. All right, so this is
Great damage. So interesting. He went for this line. It was 3 more damage to hit scab skins,
that's close.
right? Because otherwise he could have just gone Dread into Claw,
Okay, so this
which is
9. Okay.
9. Oh, no. So 9. Okay, so he rolled scab skins for 6 more damage straight up, but at the cost of a potential arsenal, which would have been the Endless Maw. So the Endless Maw being able to play on this turn, I think scab skins just always make sense then. Yeah, because at minimum, it once again is demanding like real cards from hand. Because if he had just gone for Dread plus Claw, kind of the play it safe route, then David has one more opportunity to try to stick something threatening, or even just return like a 2-card 6, right? And a 2-card 6 would make Brennan do something, because Scabskins is only going to block 1, and he's at 5. So this was a good line. I like how Brennan played this last bit of the game here. To be fair, he hasn't been on Arsenal for a while, so this is drawing up just some pretty hot hands, regardless of the complaints about them. So that's what we like to see out of Levia. Like the Levia we want to see is the Levia that can just draw 4 cards and play 4 cards. And honestly, without Art of War, those types of Levia games have felt more infrequent. Art of War was quite an amazing, just I'm going to draw 4 and I'm going to play 4 and it's going to deal 12 damage. And that card had higher ceilings than that, of course, comboing it with Blood Rush, banishing a Slitherpede. But for just kind of the medium rate play of always making sure my turn deals 12, we do miss that on a lot of hands in Levia. We do miss it. But not this game. This game has been quite sick.
3, pitch, make a shield, 6, you get 3 over.
Ooh! And actually getting 3 over right here on top of the defense. That is going to be Brennan taking it home to go 3-0. Now, we didn't see Brennan, unfortunately, make top 8 at this tournament, but his run was going pretty sick. We saw his winning in, I'm pretty sure, maybe it was like the second to last round. We saw him later on stream on the actual feature, but I wanted to make sure we saw this match. Mainly, David had a pretty spicy tech in the smash up that honestly looked pretty good. If it wasn't a Blood Rush and Arsenal, that was going to be a really punishing line of Weakest Link into the smash up. And then, of course, we saw Brennan kind of go on this roller coaster of variance, which honestly was never actually bad variance. You know, the unlucky claims aside, it was actually all good variance. But there we go. That was the missing round 3 backup match from MinMax's wonderful Battle Hardened. It was a fantastic stream. If you haven't watched the whole thing, please do check it out. And with that, there are a bunch more VODs uploaded by my patrons that are on the Patreon. If not right now, then very soon, because we're feeling good and we're going to churn these out today. So thanks for watching, everybody, and I'll see you in the next one.